Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Community Chats. My name is Erin Oath. I am a project manager with the Office of Community Engagement at the University of Mississippi. Uh, our normal other colleagues are away today, Jody Holland and Anthony Siracusa. But I am joined with two outstanding community leaders I'm excited to introduce you to today. Community chats are regular conversations with individuals, ordinary people in the Lafayette Oxford University community who are doing really great work to make a positive difference in our area. We come to you on Facebook Wednesdays and Fridays at noon. Our goal is to elevate community leaders, elevate good work that's going on, and give you opportunities to plug into it. And so we're super excited now that we are not just on Facebook, we are on YouTube, Spotify, your favorite podcast player. So make sure that you check those out in our link tree. If you would like to be interviewed on the show, or if you know someone that we should really talk to, someone that's doing really great work that inspires you, please let us know. You can email us at engaged@olemiss.edu. You can drop a note in the comments section on our Facebook page or any of our social media platforms. Community Chats is an initiative of the Office of Community Engagement at the University of Mississippi in close partnership with our friends at LOFT, the Lafayette Oxford Foundation for Tomorrow. Today we have the honor and privilege of being joined by Graham Bodie and Lydia Koltai, two community leaders convening the ongoing LOU Community Space and Place conversations. They're here today to share a little bit about this important community dialogue work that is bringing people together to share their stories and imagine new possibilities together. So Lydia and Graham, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We are so glad to get to know both of you. And so for people that don't know you, would you both just get us started by sharing a little bit about who you are and how you ended up in the Oxford Lafayette community?
Lydia, you want to go first?
I can go first. Yeah, I can go first. I'm Lydia Koltai. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta and moved back to Mississippi from California in 2009. And I ended up in the Oxford area because my sister was a grad student.
I think we've lost Lydia for a second.
Oh, sorry, my internet cut out. Let's see. My sister was a grad student in psychology at the university, and part of why I moved back to Mississippi was to be closer to family. And I also just really liked the university community and how many activities there were here, and music and art. So I'm a homeschooling mom, a gardener. I have a small business, and I do a lot of community activism and volunteering. That's pretty much it.
Hey, so Graham Bodie, I'm a professor in the School of Journalism and New Media. I teach integrated marketing communication, but mainly I teach people to listen. That's my area of expertise research-wise. I am in Oxford because I married a woman from the state of Mississippi who followed me to the state of Indiana for PhD work. She and I both got our PhDs at Purdue, and then we both took jobs at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge, and that just wasn't quite close enough to Mississippi for her. So we needed to be somewhere close to family, very much like Lydia's story. And so we moved here. I believe we're in our 4th year in Oxford, and we moved because we both found jobs at a university we could plug into and feel like we were making a difference, and in a community where there's lots of opportunity to really sort of lead, and people like to talk. And so when you do dialogue, deliberation, conversation, and listening work, it's really nice to be in a community where people actually will communicate even across difference. And so that's was a nice added value for moving to this community as well.
Oh, great. So how did each of you get involved in community work? Lydia, you talked about your experience and desire to be a community activist, the ways you've plugged into different community issues. Graham, you talked about dialogue work. Um, how did you get started in doing that kind of work?
Well, I got started probably 2016, 2017, after there were a number of police shootings of Black men that were in the news. And police brutality wasn't a new issue to me because I grew up like hearing those stories. But I think I had been really involved with homeschooling and parenting my kids and wasn't so active in the community. And that was the point where I felt like I couldn't ignore the issues that I was seeing. And I just wanted my kids to grow up in a better world than we currently had. So I sent an email to April Grayson at the Winter Institute asking if they had any volunteer opportunities. And sort of organically out of that, we ended up doing lynch immunization work, and that's really what I've been doing probably since 2017. And I've branched out from there to getting involved with other work. But racial justice and social justice is very important to me, so that's a lot of where my focus is.
Yeah, and it was a typical academic focused on tenure and promotion requirements, which means publishing in spaces that not a lot of people access. And for one reason or another, that research got picked up by the Wall Street Journal about 5 or 6 years ago. And because of the article that was written, somebody called me and asked me if I would come do some consulting work with this company. And because I didn't have to take that job because I had a stable job, I sort of said, well, I'd love to come, work with your team, but I don't want to just come and do a dog and pony show. I really want to test this notion that you can build a listen first culture in an organization. And he was game for that. And because of the impact that I was having with that company in particular, it made me seek out other opportunities. And one of the first that I got involved with nationally was an organization called Listen First Project, which I now help run. Listen First Project, and we're an organization that has created a coalition of about 325 organizations across the country that do this kind of dialogue, deliberation, conversation work to mend the frayed social fabric, as we say. So brought some of that, so because coming here and because of where I was in the journalism school, had an opportunity to start doing some programming and being involved in some programs. So we brought a group called Braver Angels to campus back in March, which is where Lydia and I met. She was one of the participants in the Braver Angels Red Blue workshop. And because of that experience, and because of some of the activism she's been involved with the Winter Institute, that's how we started to do the specific LOU community conversations that we're doing right now in collaboration with a couple of other organizations, including Conversations for Change, League of Women Voters, and then the Winter Institute and Listen First Project. That's the 4 organizations that are kind of at this point doing this specific set of conversations. But that's Lydia and I met through that, where we bring in conservatives and progressives together to talk about where they're coming from and what their perspectives are, so that you can actually, maybe if you see someone post something on Facebook you disagree with, rather than lashing out at them and calling them names, you might actually engage them and ask them why they might believe a little bit differently than you, and establish those relationships so that we can we can act together as a community rather than try to be divided as sort of against each other in some capacity.
Well, that's a great segue into talking more about those space and place conversations. For people that have not heard of those yet, would you just tell them a little bit about this current dialogue series, what you're doing with these community conversations?
Yeah, so I'll just read the description that we've got, and then maybe Lydia can talk a little bit about, we've done 2 so far, and maybe she can talk a little bit about kind of the experientially what you sort of experience, what your expectation is when you come in, of course, and then like what it actually looks like. So we say, as members of the LOU community, our challenges and experiences may be different, but we all have something to share and learn from one another. If there's one thing we have in common, it's that we care about our community and want to see its people thrive, especially in the face of so much uncertainty. And so we're inviting people to speak from their own experiences, not as representatives of their church or their political affiliation or some elected capacity, if we're lucky enough to have some elected officials come to these. And so our time together is said to be focused listening, not to debate, not to crosstalk, but to seek to understand what we have in common and how we can better work together toward common goals. And this specific series is called Space and Place because we want to talk about issues that are relevant to creating a welcoming place that is Lafayette Oxford University sort of writ large, and to talk about those spaces that might not necessarily be welcoming to all based on the history of certain types of spaces and certain policies that are in place that might restrict certain people from entering those spaces. And even if those policies aren't in place today rigidly, the implicit structures that exist that sort of diswelcome, if that's a word, unwelcome somebody from joining certain places and spaces in the community.
So I'll just say that having the opportunity to do the Braver Angels workshop with Graham was really a powerful and I think transformative experience. And I think I, like a lot of people right now, just have a hunger for connecting and talking to people who see things differently. And there feels like there's so much tension and anger a lot of times that it's hard to have those conversations. So part of what we wanted to do was create safety where people can talk honestly and really like hear each other. A lot of times on social media, the conversation gets so heated so quick that you don't really get a chance to connect and see the person's humanity and understand why they feel the way they do. So a big part of these conversations, and with the first one, it was a lot just about building trust. And a lot of people reflected that, you know, especially with coronavirus right now, they're feeling really disconnected from other people just in general. And so this was like a space, a kind of joyful space in some ways to just have conversation with each other. And then in future conversations, we're going to be diving into some more difficult topics. And I think because we've built that trust and connected with each other on a human level, we're going to be able to have some good conversations.
Well, great. So maybe what is next? What are some of those specific opportunities, or how does this build out over time as you establish that trust?
Yeah, I think the general model, and Lydia can talk to this because she mentioned specifically the lynching memorialization. A lot of that work was built from the welcome table work that April Grayson and others led in the community back, 20, I don't know, was 15, 16, 17, that led to a group of individuals. Anyway, I let Lydia, I mean, she was involved in that. I only came to Oxford kind of at the tail end of that memorialization. So maybe Lydia, you can talk a little bit about how this might turn into action rather than just us talking and feeling good about each other and relationships. Like, what does this do in terms of propelling us to action?
Well, with the lynching memorialization project, it was a core group of folks. I wasn't in that the welcome table group, but they had gone through a process over a year and a half or 2 years of deep conversations and learning about structural racism and really understanding some of the problems. And then there was an opportunity where a woman from a university in the North was researching a particular lynching that happened here in Oxford. And so just out of that, a group of community members decided we wanted to do something to honor that history. And I think there's the same potential with this series of conversations. And it is really organic and depends on who's engaging in the conversations, I think, what direction we go in and how we want to take action. But that is the hope, I think, that at least on an individual level, that people will be motivated to take action, and maybe some group of us collectively will also, you know, decide on a project that we want to do in the community to address these issues.
Yeah, I think regardless of where someone comes from politically or ideologically, we can agree, like, we want our community to be welcoming. We want our community to be perceived by anybody, regardless of their position or the color of their skin or the amount of money in their bank account or fill in the blank. We want them to feel like they have a place in this community, that this community is not just it's not just we set the table and we're inviting you, but that you have an active role in helping to set that table, that you have an active role in building those places and those spaces that are welcoming to people that look like you and think like you and act like you and have bank accounts like you. And again, all of those other kind of ways in which we might try to segment or divide the population. It's not an opportunity to get rid of difference. It's actually an opportunity to celebrate difference, to acknowledge that we're different in many ways, but we also have a lot of things in common that unite us. Even if that's just we live in the Lou community, or we desire to live in the Lou community, or we used to live in the Lou community and now we don't live there, but we really have an affinity for the Lou community. Even if that's the only thing that we can sort of say, unites us, that's a starting place. And so what we did, the last two sort of, we call them like round one, kind of unofficially in our team meetings, that was an opportunity to basically, share out something personal. So it was like, tell the story of your name, basically. And so everybody has a story of their name, and that kind of gets very personal very quickly. And then round two and round three, as Lydia said, we're diving into more sort of, issue specific things. So we are going to talk about things like the flag, like statues, like, history and heritage and hate. And other H words and words that begin with other letters other than H that we see differently, and not necessarily to say I'm right and you're wrong, but to say I can understand that you might have a different perspective from me, even if I don't agree with you, and let's talk through why you could hopefully eventually see that I have a different perspective than you, so that we can respect each other as humans, and we can see the person and not the position, and so that we can seek to understand that we all live in this community and really all want the best for this community. It's not a bunch of outside agitators coming in to change us. It's in fact people that live in this community that love it so much that want it to be even better than it already is.
Yeah. Very inspiring and very necessary work. What are some of the greatest challenges that you've experienced in this work and getting this series off the ground? What does that look like for you?
I guess one challenge would be just making sure that we're connecting to a diverse group of community members, and that that folks are invested and feel safe and comfortable enough to participate and understand that we're not going to be yelling at people or blaming someone, or none of that's happening in these conversations. So, and I think actually we've improved a lot with that, even just from the first round to the second round. I think our outreach was broader for the second conversation. So other than that, I mean, one challenge is just with coronavirus. I think it's more difficult to really get into these conversations when we're not face to face. In some ways, Zoom is nice because it's a little more flexible. You don't have to drive there and back, and there's not as much scheduling conflict maybe, but there's a lack of intimacy in some ways, which I think we do overcome it prompts. And I think people do find that connection and intimacy, but it's just a little more difficult, I think, when you're not in the room.
Yeah, I'll echo all of that, and just to kind of put it to something palatable and relatable, just read a couple of comments from people that so one person after last night said, thanks for the invite. I was pleasantly surprised and not drained by it. At first, I wasn't sure what you were dragging me into. And so there's this perception of what is this thing that I'm getting myself into, and not necessarily in a politically motivated or politically suspect or cynical way, but just like you want me to talk to a bunch of strangers. That's just weird. It's not something that is normally sort of a thing that I do. Another person said I was too upset, because earlier I'd had too many Zooms going on, so like I wasn't going to go to another Zoom. So we're all Zoom fatigued at this point, and so we're fatigued by the online experience. And so I think to sort of complement this notion that it'd be nice to be face to face. But technology does afford us an opportunity to avoid that. But at the same time, we're all, some of us are on Zoom a lot throughout the day. And the other is when someone looks, so another person emailed and said something to the effect of, I was going to go, but then I saw all of the organizations, and because they're all lefty, there was some sort of kind of term of derision about these organizations, Winter Institute, being lefty. Which is funny because Listen First Project, the CEO is a former, he's currently registered as a Republican and a former aide for Elizabeth Dole, and used to do marketing and ops for the Republican Party. So like, I don't know where the sentiment that our organization anyway is lefty, and the Winter Institute clearly has lots of progressive members, but doesn't necessarily forward a specific agenda in Oxford. But rather in these kind of meetings, it really is come one, come all, with all your perspectives and your ways of thinking. So it is harder to recruit conservative-minded individuals for one reason or another, and so that's a challenge that we acknowledge. But that's not unique to this event. It's unique. It's just a fact of the dialogue and deliberation work. So and so the trying to make sure that we're not just Lydia and I are, if we just agree on everything, that it's great to be in a conversation together, but it'd be a whole lot better to have reds and blues and purples and all kinds of shades of political ideology, from libertarians to people who claim communism or socialism, like all of those perspectives and any of those perspectives in a room together, sharing personal stories is really what it's all about. So that, again, we're all part of the community. So we should connect and we should relate across those differences.
So what keeps you going? What motivates you? What's the driving force behind this work as people that don't hold a formal community position, but are really organizing this out of a community responsibility or need?
Yeah, I want my kids to grow up in a world where they're not labeled by their ideology or their perspective, but they're respected as a human because they're a human. And I want everybody to experience the power of listening in some way, shape, or form. And so if I can bring opportunities like this and help to organize opportunities like this, that's kind of why I exist, really, in a professional sense. So personally, it's for my kids. Professionally, it's because I think there really is power in listening across difference.
And I would say the same for me. It's really about the kind of world we're creating for our children. And with all the challenges that we're facing right now and challenges that will be coming our way, I think we are going to need to be able to talk to each other and come up with creative solutions together. So the more people we can get to engage in conversation with each other, the stronger all of our communities will be.
Wow. I love that picture of community and the future that y'all are painting. So how can people get involved? Maybe they missed round one. Is it too late for them to jump into conversation? What are ways for them to plug in and learn more?
Yeah, you can put my email address on however this goes out. It's just my first name, Graham, at listenfirstproject.org. We don't have a website where we're hosting all this kind of stuff. We don't have Facebook or Twitter assets for this specific opportunity. So it's really, we're promoting it through our own individual networks, so to speak. But yeah, so you can email me and I can, if there's enough interest, we can create more conversation opportunities than already exist. So yeah, we're willing to do anything like that. So just, you can email me. I'm sure Lydia might have some other websites that you can go to other than the organizations that are out there right now.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I just say we're definitely interested in getting as many people involved as possible. So if there is enough people who didn't get to do round one, we definitely try to set up some more round one experiences to get them folded into the conversation.
Well, fantastic. Well, as we start to wrap up, we call this our 1 minute moment, and just want to give you a minute to share whatever message you would like with citizens in the LOU community to our listeners today. What do you most want them to know?
Oh gosh, so I'll let Lydia wrap us up, so I'll go first. Yeah, I think I'll just kind of, my stance is that there's so many messages that you can consume, whether you watch Fox or MSNBC, CNN, whether you read the Wall Street Journal or the USA Today, of division. There's so many sort of ways that you can think that we're divided when there are equally, or if not more, evidence that there's more in common. There's a hidden common ground beneath the division that currently what I'm working on is a project called Weaving Community. And there are so many examples of people that we might call weavers, people who listen first, who seek to understand those differences and are working to build better communities across, or regardless of, and despite of, ideological and political differences. And so I just encourage people to find those pockets of positivity, find those opportunities to be weaving community, and plug in. It might not mean getting on a Zoom and talking to 30 strangers. It may look different. That's fine. But find those opportunities in your local context, your neighborhood, and plug into those, and then tell everybody about them so that positivity wins the day.
And I would just echo that and say also that Oxford, Lafayette County, this is one of the most amazing communities I've gotten to live in. And there's just so many incredible, intelligent, and passionate people here from like the whole spectrum of life experience. And I really just invite everyone to talk to each other, get to know each other, get to know people that are different from you. And let's just talk to each other and figure out ways to solve some of our community challenges and make this community even better than it already is.
What a great invitation and note to end on. Thank you both so much for spending time with us today. This has been such a rich conversation. So thankful for the work that you're doing to bring us together in dialogue, to break down some of those things that make it hard for us to listen to each other, and for the reminders that there's a lot of common ground there to build on. And as citizens, as community members, we all have a role to play in making our communities a better place. So thank you so much for your work. Thank you for sharing with us. And thank you to all of you for tuning in for this edition of Community Chats. Please join us next time as for next episode. In the meantime, please like, comment, share this conversation with your friends, share about the good work that Graham and Lydia are doing. And as a reminder, you can now find all of our episodes of Community Chats on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Stay engaged, stay safe, and we'll see you next time on Community Chats.
Bye.